Hi everyone, welcome to Urban Wealth Management, Smart Women Savvy Money 2010 webinar. I'm so excited for today. It's our last webinar of the year, and I think you guys are going to find it exceptionally interesting and helpful. I'm Diane Manuel, so there's no Renee today, there's me today, so I want to say hello to all those folks that I haven't yet chatted with through the webinar. As you know, and if you haven't, as you know, folks that have been here before, it's 20 minutes on the clock, about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes for questions. So please take some notes and get your questions ready. Lois is ready. And also, don't worry about it. You'll be able to get a replay of this. We'll be sending this out. If not today, we'll send it out on Monday. So again, thank you for joining us. Today's topic is Want the Corner Office. However, on your screen, we have some additional upcoming events with Urban Wealth Management, and I just want to walk you through some of those very quickly. Again, this is the last one this is our last webinar of the year. We decided to do this because we really wanted to help our clients and friends and colleagues jumpstart for 2018. Renee will be on CNBC's Closing Bell on Thursday, November 16th around noon. We'll also post that on the website. You know, those are always fabulous because she always has some really good words of wisdom to share with everyone. And starting in 2018, because we're all going to be ready to go, Lois is going to tell us how to get the corner office. So we're going to be talking about styling and smiling. We'll have someone talk about getting our wardrobe, stylist on board, getting our wardrobe together for 2018. Also, that's in January. In February, we'll have interpreting gender communication. So we'll talk a little bit about how men and women have different styles of communicating. That should be super helpful in the first quarter of next year. And then we'll do a switcheroo, and in March, we're going to talk about your trust. And does your trustee, the person in charge of your trust, have the right stuff? And we'll have some estate planning attorneys on board who will help us really think about who the right trustee is, whether it's administrative issues or health issues for your trust. So those are our upcoming activities. We won't see you in December for the webinar, so we do want to wish everyone a great Thanksgiving and wonderful holidays, whatever you celebrate, Christmas or Hanukkah. We just want you to have a really good time with your friends and your family, and be safe. So we're going to switch to Lois. Lois, for those folks that don't know her already, she is a New York Times best-selling author, and she's going to really talk to us today. Hold on just a second, I pushed the wrong button. She's going to talk to us today on, hold on just a second. She's going to talk to us today on how to keep the corner office. I'm trying to get Lois's screen up, so hold on just a second. Yeah, I think. Hold on. Okay, hold on just a second. There we go. Not yet. Hold on. Lois, do you see your screen?
I don't see my screen. There's something here that says I've been nominated to be a presenter, and then I clicked start sharing, but nothing happened.
Nothing happened. Okay.
Let me see if this works. There we go.
Okay.
Click
yeah,
one more
there you go.
thing. And then what you're looking at, do you see the sharing my screen on the top left?
I see your screen. I see your screen.
You see my whole screen?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just minimize that. Okay, good. Am I ready to roll?
You're ready to roll.
Great. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I am delighted to be with you this afternoon. As Diane already told you, I'm going to be talking to you about how to get the corner office. Now, what you want to remember is that the corner office is just a metaphor for getting the things you want most in life. Maybe you don't really want a corner office, but you want a promotion, or you want to start your own business, or you just want more. So that's what you want to keep in mind. And what I'm going to be talking to you about today is, there it goes. I'm going to talk to you about what is nice girl syndrome, how do you know if you suffer from it, what mistakes do women make when they act like nice little girls, and what skills should you develop so that you can achieve your goals and not be called we know that dreaded B word, the bitch, right? So let me just start off with what is nice girl syndrome. You know, when I first wrote my book, it was not called Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. It was called Quit Being a Girl. Because what I realized as an executive coach is that women over-rely on messages that they got in childhood about how little girls are supposed to behave. And when they over-rely on those messages, they become nice girls.
Lois, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. On your screen, can you hit slideshow at the top?
On my screen, I did, and I am in the slideshow. You don't see me moving it?
You're just on the front?
I'm sorry.
Are you still on the first slide?
No, I'm on the second one now.
No, it's not moving. Do you want me to do it?
Sure, why don't you do it?
Okay. You keep talking. I'll change it over here.
Okay, so you're going to bring it to the second slide. Okay, so when they started calling my book Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office, I said, I'm going to spend the rest of my life saying nice is necessary for success, but it's not sufficient. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be nice. You should absolutely be nice. Nice is necessary for both men and women. The problem is that women take it to the extreme. So that's what I want you to keep in mind, that nice is necessary for success, not sufficient. So let's take a look at the next slide that talks about nice girl syndrome. Oop, one back, Diane. Didn't quite get to that one. Okay. So you know you suffer from nice girl syndrome if you behave according to the rules you were taught in childhood. Now, nowadays, I know a lot of parents are giving messages about, you can be anything you want, the sky's the limit, just because you're a little girl doesn't mean you can't be what you want. Those are great messages. The problem is you get out in the world, you get to the workplace, you get to school, and what you find is that the world is not quite as encouraging as mom and dad. So there continues to be some expectations for how women are supposed to behave. And most often, people like us best when we act like those nice little girls we were taught to be in childhood. Okay, next, Diane. Next one.
Okay.
Next one? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so you suffer from nice girl syndrome if you act in ways designed to make people like you. We all remember Sally Field when she made that famous proclamation, you like me, you really like me. Next, Diane. You also know you suffer from nice girl syndrome if you avoid being too powerful because you're afraid that men will reject you. Go ahead, Diane. You avoid aggressively pursuing your goals because it might make other people uncomfortable. You don't ask for what you really want. You ask for what you think you can get. And you believe it's your job to take care of everyone else. If you engage in any of those behaviors, then you know you suffer from nice girl syndrome. Now, in today's format, we don't really have time for me to ask you what were some of your childhood messages and have you answer that. But I do want you to ask yourself that question. How might some of the messages you got as a little girl be contributing to the ways in which you behave that undermine you getting what you want most? You've got to ask yourself that question. Okay, Diane, I've already said that. Keep going.
Oh.
And then let me talk to you about the top 10 mistakes made by nice girls. And then I'm going to get into, and what skills do you need in your skill set? And because we only have 20 minutes, I'm going to be going through this relatively quickly. And as you've already been told, you can have access to the deck, so you can go back and look at it anytime you want. And number one, we make miracles. If something needs to be done with less time, money, and resources than is humanly possible, we get it done. And that can be a mistake, because when you make miracles, you're only asked to make more miracles. Number two, we don't take time to network. We think that we need to keep our nose to the grindstone. We need to keep busy. We need to work. If you're not taking time to network, then you don't have the relationships in place that are going to support you in the long run. And I want you to remember this. When you need a relationship, it's too late to build it. Next. We fail to set boundaries with people. We let people walk all over our boundaries. We let people to come in, plop themselves down our office, and talk to us for 45 minutes when we're working on a deadline, which means we're going to have to stay 45 minutes later. So we don't set boundaries with people. Number four, we strive for perfection. You know, this is one thing about guys. Guys know when good enough is good enough. Have you ever watched a guy vacuum a rug? He knows when good enough is good enough. And you need to know that too, because striving for perfection is an exercise in futility. You can never achieve it, and it keeps you from doing other things that would help you more in your career. Number five, we ignore the look and sound of success. Women don't realize that there is a look and sound of success. 50% of your credibility comes from how you look. 40% comes from how you sound. Only 10% of your credibility comes from what you say. And people say, well, how can that possibly be? Well, it's because in most workplaces, everyone's equally qualified. So if everyone's equally qualified, the 10% of what you say becomes less important than how you say it. So you want to remember this Chinese curse. May you have a wonderful idea and not be able to convince anyone of it. Number six, unclear vision and branding. Women don't realize that they are a brand in the workplace. There is a word on the street about you. It is something that people say about you behind your back. But you can decide what you want that to be, and I'm going to give you some tips later for how you can create that. Number seven, we tolerate inappropriate behavior from people. Boy, are we seeing that stop in the last month, aren't we, with Weinstein and Spacey and, all these other people who are being accused of inappropriate behavior. Hopefully all of us learn a lesson from that we don't have to tolerate any kind of inappropriate behavior. It doesn't just have to be sexual harassment. Number eight, we don't ask for what we want. Instead, we think if we work hard, we'll be given it. That's a fallacy. You need to ask for what you want. Number nine, we use far too many words. The more words you use, you soften a message. The fewer words you use, you strengthen your message. So you want to make sure you're giving your message in as few words as possible. It really emphasizes your confidence and your competence. And I'm going to give you a model for that too, how to do that. And number 10, we tend to avoid difficult conversations. We see difficult conversations as confrontations as opposed to opportunities to really understand one another better and get our needs met. And I'm going to give you a model for how to do that too. Okay, so those are the top 10 mistakes, and now I want to get into the top 10 tactics that every woman needs in her skill set. And you can decide which one of these you have and which one you don't. The number one skill you have to have in your skill set is playing to win. Women come to work and they act as if the workplace is a sandbox where we should all play nicely together. Well, yeah, we have to play nicely, but you have to factor in, are you playing the game to win? Now, next slide. Every workplace is a playing field. There are rules, there are boundaries, there are strategies. If you don't know the rules, boundaries, and strategies of your workplace, you can't win the game. Because let's just look at this one example, and hold right there, Diane, then. If you look at this one example here, the blue lines represent men's boundaries when it comes to assertiveness. And you'll notice the wider the boundaries, the harder it is to get called out, right? Because you've got the whole field that you can take up. But when it comes to assertiveness, women's boundaries come in. And that makes it easier for you to go out of bounds. And it's one reason why you get called a bitch. Because if you are being as assertive as a man is on the playing field of work that does not accept that, then you're going to get called out. Now, just yesterday, I was in Duluth, Minnesota, and this woman said to me, but that's not fair, but that's not right. And as I said to her, I don't make the rules, I just report them. And no, it's not fair, and it's not right. But you have to decide, if I'm on a playing field that doesn't let me be as assertive as I want to be, then are you on the right playing field? Or you may say, look, I love the playing field I'm on. I just need to learn to play according to the rules. All right, then look at how other women are playing the game. And you don't play your game in the middle of the field. You play your game at the edge, because that's where winners win the game. So when you see those two red lines, you got to play your game right at the edge of those lines, taking up all the field that's available to you. Now let's look at the next slide, because this is important too. You'll notice here that when we talk about people of color in the workplace, their boundaries are different than Caucasian boundaries. And people don't like talking about this because it makes them uncomfortable. And frankly, I didn't talk about it for a long time either, because I felt, well, I'm a Caucasian woman. Who am I to talk about this? But when I started talking about it, women of color would come up to me and say, thank you so much for saying this, because it's true. So look at the women of color boundaries. They come in even further, which means I, as a Caucasian woman, and I just use assertiveness as an example. In the area of assertiveness, I can be more assertive than a woman of color can be, and I'm not going to get called all kinds of names. Okay? And so, I've been called in to coach so many African-American women in particular who their bosses say to me, she's this angry black woman. And when I meet them, they're not angry. They're assertive. But they're playing on the man's playing field, particularly the Caucasian man's playing field, and it's not working for them. And as I've often said to them, is I can teach you how to win on this playing field, or you can find a playing field that appreciates your assertiveness for what it is. So those are some career decisions you have to make. Okay, next skill you need in your arsenal is learn the nuances of female negotiation. Women have to negotiate different than men. Men are allowed to be more direct. Just as they're allowed to be more assertive, they're allowed to be more direct. When women negotiate, we need to use a series of relational chips, which is, I'm in a relationship with you. I don't want to do anything to damage this relationship. At the same time, I want to talk about how both of our needs can get better met. Now, if I understand it correctly, this is what you need in this scenario. Let me describe what I need, and then let's talk about how both of our needs are going to get met. That's the way a woman has to negotiate. A man doesn't have to do that. Now, yesterday it was very interesting because I gave this example and a woman in the group said, but you just said to use fewer words, that fewer words soften a message, more words strengthen it. And I said, it's situational. If I'm negotiating with someone I'm in a relationship with, I'm not going to go in there and say, hey, look, this is what I want. I don't care what you say. Those are few words. but that's not going to get me where I want to go. So you need to know when to use fewer words, how many words you should be using, and when you should be using a few more words just to soften it a little bit. And so what I'm talking to you about in 20 minutes actually took me 2 hours yesterday, so I hope you're listening fast. Number 3, when it comes to difficult conversations, you use what's called a death script. And you know what? Why don't you just click through the DESC on this, Diane, so that they can see it all at once. Right there. Perfect. Okay, when you need to have a difficult conversation, don't avoid the conversation. Instead, script it out. And just take some notes and say, I need to describe why I want to have the conversation. I need to explain my side of it and elicit the other person's side. I need to specify desired outcomes. And I need to create consequences, either positive or negative. So if you script it out in advance, you are more likely to get the outcome you want. So just listen to how this works. I'll use Diane as an example. Diane, I'd like to talk to you about the workshop that we did. We did not do a workshop, so I'm making this up. The workshop we did last week.
Mm-hmm.
That's
okay.
the D, describe. Now I'm going to explain. The way I saw it is we were putting the workshop together. We each had deliverables, and I kept delivering mine on time, but when it came for you to deliver what you promised, they weren't on time, and we wound up getting behind the 8 ball. And as a result, I didn't feel like the quality of what we delivered was what it could be. Now I'm going to elicit. I'm wondering how you saw the situation, Diane. Now, whatever Diane says, it doesn't matter what she says. I'm not going to argue with her. She may say, well, I had some family emergency. She could say any number of things, in which case all I have to do is be an active listener and say, okay, I understand that maybe this was not the best time for you. And in that case, I certainly don't mind carrying a little bit more of the weight. But let me tell you about what would be helpful in the future. Now I specify what I want to have happen in the future. That if that happens in the future and you have some problems at home that you have to attend to, I would hope you'd let me know so that I could plan my time effectively. And if not, I would hope that maybe we need to build in a few more benchmarks to make sure we're both on the same page. Now listen to the consequences. I think if we do that, then we will be an unbeatable duo when it comes to doing this training. Now you hear, I wasn't blaming her. I was telling her what I needed. I was giving her the opportunity to empty her cup. No matter what she said, I wasn't going to get defensive. I wasn't going to explain. I wasn't going to argue with her. I was going to let her know I heard her and get to what I want. That's how you have a difficult conversation. Number 4, communicate in headlines and taglines. And again, Diane, if you could just click 3 times, one more. Got it. Okay, when I said women use too many words, it's because if I could turn this page upside down, that's how you talk. First, you give a preamble, which could be a tagline, but you give a preamble about, I want to talk to you about something that's really important to me, and I've been doing a lot of research, and blah, 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 blah. When people tune you out before you ever get to your point, when you talk in the future, starting today, I want you to give your main point first, offer 2 or 3 pieces of supporting data, and then this tagline, women have to use a tagline. And the reason they have to use the tagline is because we expect women to care about what other people think. When we are as direct as men, we get called pushy, bossy, any number of things. So a simple tagline will mitigate that from happening. So it sounds like this. Okay, let's say that you're going in to ask for a raise, and you say to the boss, I'm here today to talk about getting a raise within the next 90 days. There's 3 reasons why I believe I'm entitled to this raise. First of all, when I came on, I was promised a review in 6 months, and I haven't had that review yet. So that's number 1. Number 2, in the 8 months that I've been here, I've already added to the bottom line by reducing costs and increasing revenues. And the third thing is that when I came on board, I was told that you knew my salary was a little bit under and that my performance would then dictate future raises, and clearly I've delivered on what I promised. Now you can hear that I feel strongly about this. I'd like you to tell me what do we have to do so that that raise happens? Okay? I don't just stop and stare at the person and make them feel uncomfortable. The tagline picture it tossing back to the other person. I've given my reasons and I stop talking. And that tagline tosses it back. That tagline could be, you see how I see it, how do you see it? Or it could be, I feel as if I've made my point. What's next? Who do I need to speak with? However that works for you. But basically you fill in these boxes and then you stop. Number 5, Diane.
It's about 125, Lois.
Okay, so I'm not even going to explain all these then. You've got to manage in the workplace. I always say, women and men are wired differently. Asking a woman not to cry at work is like trying to teach a pig to sing. It annoys you and frustrates the pig, right? So I'm not going to tell you not to cry. I'm going to tell you to manage your emotions. And if you get tearful, the most important thing that you do is excuse yourself, because nobody wants to be made uncomfortable. Number 6, stop doing your job. If your presence doesn't add value, your absence doesn't make a difference. So if you come to work every day and do your job, it's not enough. You need to be figuring out a way that you are adding value to your company by supporting other people, by increasing revenues, decreasing costs, increasing longevity for valued employees, whatever it is. You come up with a way to add value. Number 7. Capitalize on the internal and external quid pro quo. Quid pro quo means something in exchange for something else. In every single relationship, there's a quid pro quo. Women are great at giving in the quid pro quo. They're not as good at asking in the quid pro quo. So the more favors you do for other people, you have lots of chips in your account. I'm just saying, cash in some of those chips. Number 8. Employ contrasting. It's another way to have a difficult conversation. It's exactly as it sounds. Contrasting is saying what you do want and what you don't want. I don't want you to think that I'm not grateful for everything you've done for me since I've been here, because I am. At the same time, I want us to revisit this promise of a raise after 6 months. That's contrasting. Number 9, make sure you're sitting at the table. If you are not sitting at the table, you're not in the room. And I mean literally and figuratively sitting at the table. Do not take those chairs at the edge when the room is full. Instead, you squeeze that chair into the table. Next slide. And the best place, go back one. And the best place to sit when you're in a meeting is next to the most powerful person in the room. Okay, and then the last slide.
Oh, sorry. No, they were good. Yeah.
Yep, we're good. Is build your brand. As I said to you, you are a brand in the workplace. There's a word on the street about you. You can decide what you want that word on the street to be and make it a reality. This acronym for wallet is how you build your brand. First, write down what you want people to say. Complete the sentence. There goes a woman who, fill in the blank. Then apply observable behaviors. It's not enough to say, there goes a woman who's really smart, because people don't know us by our intentions. They know us by our behavior. If you want people to say you're really smart, then you have to exhibit behaviors that indicate that you are. Things like speaking up in meetings, speaking with data, facts, and figures, reading articles, books, magazines, making sure that you're on top of what's going on in your field. That's what makes people say you're smart. Next, look to the edge. And when I say look to the edge, I mean the edge of the playing field. As I've said, that's where the winners play the game, at the edge of the field. Let other people know about the good things you do. Brag a little bit. Erase, oh, it was nothing, totally from your vocabulary. Elicit feedback. Brand products do focus groups. Your focus group is 360 feedback. If you haven't had 360 feedback in 18 months to 2 years, you don't know what people are saying about your brand, and you've got to do it. And finally, associate abundance with your brand. Treat others with abundance. Treat others as if there is so much to go around that you are happy to share it. Friendship, good feedback, positive words, kudos to people. Share the abundance in your life, and I guarantee you it will come back to you. And when you put these together, you will be widening your wallet. And the question isn't going to be who will let you get the corner office. The question is who is going to stop you. Next, be unstoppable. Do we have time to take any questions?
Yes, certainly. If there's any questions, use your chat box. Let me know. So, Lois, in the meantime, maybe our people are typing. Where do you think women get stuck the most? What is it? Playing on the playing field? Do they opt out? Is it not promoting their brand? What do you think stops women?
I think they get stopped most responding to male expectations. And so if they have a boss who can be critical, sometimes a woman will project onto that male boss characteristics of her father who was critical, and she'll back off instead of step up to the plate and say, well, wait a minute, I hear what you're saying, and I'm not saying you don't have the right to say that. I do think that there's other circumstances of which you're not aware that I'd like to explain. So I don't think that we step up and approach some of those unrealistic expectations. Or sometimes, it's expected in some companies that women aren't supposed to speak up as much as men. They have louder voices. They interrupt us more. So when you say, where do we get stuck the most, I still think, even with all the positive messages parents are giving girls, there are so many negative messages about women in society that we still get caught up in those at times. And that's why I say I'm a recovering nice girl. I'm not sure that I have completely overcome those messages, but I do know now when I encounter them, and I'm more willing to stand up to them. Did I answer your question, Diane?
Yes. So you wrote the Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office quite a while ago. So where have there been some improvements? I mean, you kind of talked about where things, we still need to work on some things, but where have there been some improvements?
Well, it's a good question. Nice Girls Still Don't Get the Corner Office, which is the 10th anniversary edition of the original Corner Office. I added 33 new mistakes that weren't on the radar screen 12 years ago. And these mostly have to do with social media. So when you talk about where are the improvements, I mean, certainly people are more aware, but and I know that I'm not answering this question well, because let me tell you what I'm really thinking. What I'm really thinking is, I can't talk about the improvements because there's still so far to go. Mm-hmm. But I have been saying for years that what looks on the surface like improvements is really just bias going underground. We have become more politically correct. And I feel as if I have been validated in that in the past 6 weeks since the Harvey Weinstein scandal. Mm-hmm. Because all of a sudden women are coming out of the woodwork talking about how they've been treated. And as I've been saying for 10 years, have things gotten better? On the surface it looks like it. But when you scratch the surface, there is still so far to go. And if you look at the differences in the numbers of women in executive positions, in pay, these are measurable ways that we can see there's still so far to go. And let me give one silver lining, though, because sure. Where I see differences is like when I go out and speak, talking to dads. It's the dads, I think, who hold the key to really being able to help change things for us, because they say things to me like, I've got 3 daughters, and I don't want them going through the same thing I see my female colleagues going through. So I think in some ways younger men are getting it, especially as they're having daughters.
Cool. Well, we are a little bit over, so I want to thank you so much. If anyone that heard our conversation earlier, you know that Lois just flew into town this morning from Duluth, Minnesota. She made her connection. She's in Pasadena, and she was able to get on our webinar, and I hope everyone, this is really giving you some things to think about in terms of getting your career going in 2018. I do want to recommend the book. The book is excellent. There's checklists, and you don't really have to go through the whole book. You can just really work on what you need to work on. You can use it as a self-assessment, or as Lois said, get your team together and, hold yourselves accountable on what you need to do and do better. So I hope this really gives everyone a jump start. Lois, thank you again. I know it was a little crazy, but so thank you so much. And everyone, we will send out this replay to you either today or on Monday. Everyone have a fabulous weekend, and I really appreciate everyone coming on board to listen. And Lois, thank you again.
You're welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Diane.